Good evening and welcome to Blueprint Explosive Exclusive. I'm Madhavdas G. Viewers, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a two-day visit to Israel, his second visit to the country in 9 years. This trip comes at a crucial time with the West Asia region witnessing heightened tensions and shifting geopolitical equations. Beyond the ceremonial engagements, there are substantive strategic conversations that are on the table. What are these and what's on the agenda? We'll tell you. The first is of India and Israel's strategic ties when it comes to science and tech cooperation. There's defense security and as well as a partnership that the two countries will have. And already, of course, a lot of announcements related to the Iron Dome that we're talking about. Trade and economy is another push that we're looking at. There's also, of course, the larger issue of people-to-people exchanges that would be taking place. Now, this visit also follows the first round of negotiations for the India-Israel Free Trade Agreement. The terms of reference were signed in November 2025, establishing a structured framework for discussions on identified areas to enhance trade and economic cooperation. The talks that began on the 23rd of February set the stage for higher-level political engagement during the Prime Minister's visit. Perhaps the most closely watched aspect of the visit is defense cooperation as well, as India is looking at developing an indigenous air defense shield called Sudarshan Chakra. It's learned that New Delhi would like to explore the possibility of incorporating certain elements from Israel's Iron Dome all-weather air defense system that can intercept and destroy missiles and artillery shells. There's also, of course, the fact that it's an impregnable strategic shield that's being planned, a multi-layered air defense system similar to Israel's Iron Dome, and this would be jointly manufactured in India with a technology transfer that is also allegedly on the table. Now, 360-degree protection of borders and skies is what is envisaged as part of this entire scheme. What is Israel's Iron Dome program currently about? It's one of the planet's most effective defense shields. It's a short-range missile defense system, and interception rate of this is 90%. The missile range is up to 70 kilometers, and 5,000 plus interceptions have taken place since 2011. It's designed to stop rockets, missiles and drones and consists of three key components: a radar, a command center, as well as interceptor missiles. Now, ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Tel Aviv, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel will create an entire system, essentially a kind of hexagon of alliances around or within the Middle East. He's listed India, Greece, the Greek Cypriot administration and unnamed Arab African nation countries as members of this proposed alliance. Now, this seems to have rattled Pakistan, with Islamabad calling it an anti-Muslim Ummah bloc, because soon after this announcement, Pakistan Parliament Senate rushed to unanimously pass a resolution describing the alliance as a threat. However, this meeting with the Israel Prime Minister is also coming at a time when there are discussions over possible free trade agreement between the two nations. After all, Israel has deep trade ties with India as well. Let's get you the details of that free trade agreement. What are we looking at in terms of the numbers of the trade between India and Israel? For financial year 2023-24, it's at $6.53 billion. Defense purchases for the financial year 2020 to 2024 is at $20.5 billion. When you talk about FDI coming in from Israel since the year 2000, it's at $334.2 million, and Tech Innovation Fund that is, of course, of $40 million that is also in place as far as cooperation between the two countries are concerned. All right, Mohit Bhatt is joining us. Mohit, I believe, of course, you are in Tel Aviv. You're very close to the knesset. Take us through what we can expect this evening. Soon after Prime Minister was greeted on the tarmac by Benjamin Netanyahu, we are looking at the pictures coming in of the bilateral meeting that is now taking place between the two leaders.
Well, yes, in fact, as soon as Prime Minister Narendra Modi landed at Tel Aviv, Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, with his wife, was there at the airport to receive him. Now, for 15 to 20 minutes, the initial bilateral talk happened at the airport, and post that, both of them have left for Hotel King David in Jerusalem. Behind me is Hotel King David, iconic Hotel King David in the historical city of Jerusalem, where Indian diaspora shortly from now will be welcoming Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They will also be interacting with him, and also a special all-veg menu has been created for Prime Minister Narendra Modi in the hotel. Now, post that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be going to the Israeli parliament, that is Knesset, and he will be the first Indian leader to address the Israeli parliament. We have seen the leaders from US, from Argentina addressing Israeli parliament, but he will be the first Indian leader to speak at the Knesset. And also Prime Minister on umpteen occasions have spoken about that this is not the era of war. This is era of peace and progress, and all the countries need to come together and form an alliance that calls for progress and peace. And hence, this particular address by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the Knesset will be very, very important. The message that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will give will also have large implications. He is the leader of the world's largest democracy in the world, and whatever he says will echo all across the world.
All right, so what will the message that will be coming in from the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, and what really will the Prime Minister say there is going to be very crucial. Mohit Bhatt is in Tel Aviv. He's going to be covering all those crucial aspects this evening. Mohit, thanks so much for joining us with that quick update. Let's quickly open this up and take it across to our guest, Major General Sanjay Meston, ex-defense attaché of Afghanistan, also with us. We have Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow of the Observer Research Foundation, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Mordechai Kedar is Israeli defense expert. Jeremy Issacharoff is former Vice Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and former Israel Ambassador to Germany. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Let me start with a crucial aspect of defense cooperation. Dr. Mordechai Kedar, a lot that's being spoken about, possible collaboration when it comes to the Iron Dome, Iron Beam program, so on and so forth. What are we looking at? Is Israel looking at a technology transfer at this crucial time to India and looking at joint manufacturing as well that could be to the benefit of both the countries?
Well, this supply of weapons is only the tip of the iceberg. The big part is actually alliance, which we see today between India, Israel, and the Emirates, by the way, the United States of America behind it, against the Muslim-Sunni alliance, which we see today becoming much more influential than before. We're talking about the Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, and evidently everything is on the background of the downfall of Iran, because Israel actually attacked all the proxies of Iran and destroyed them. Hezbollah, Hamas, militias in Syria, Iraq, and the Houthis also, with the help of some other countries. And this is actually what we see today. The new two coalitions. One is the Pakistani, Turkish, Qatari, with Qatari money, and these countries which are against the Indian, Israeli, American alliance, which is against it.
Okay. Let me quickly bring in fact, Major General Sanjay Meston as well. Major General Sanjay Meston, what are we looking at? Is it, one alliance versus the other, as our Israeli guest is explaining over here? Is there a much more deeper significance? Because the Prime Minister's visit to Israel comes at a time when there are clearly very heightened tensions there in the Middle East. So there's a very clear messaging also happening in terms of the timing.
Madhav, good evening. I think in your commentary you highlighted one point that Pakistan has stated that it is against the Islamic Ummah. No, I think here I will just be very, very clear. Pakistan is just misleading the entire world. If they are so worried about the Muslim community, why are they targeting Afghans? Why are they targeting the Indian Muslims and misleading them? So they are the ones who are playing this along with Turkey and of course a few other nations. Now coming on to the specific things, I would say the strategic partnership with Israel is extremely important at this critical juncture. Both the nations have been facing the onslaught of terrorism, and the Israeli guest just highlighted they have been witness to so many proxies and how they dealt with them, and they even had to go inside Gaza. And we know what Israelis have done in Lebanon and with against Houthis and all these proxies. Similarly, India has been facing all this scourge of terrorism, and especially from J&K, and now even they want to open up from the Bangladesh side. So the fact of the matter is that Israeli and Indian defense cooperation at this time is extremely important, not only from transfer of technology. And yes, another point I would like to highlight that in the recent Operation Sindoor, we really saw the efficacy of drones and air defense system. And as stated by our Prime Minister of Sudarshan Chakra, I think doing a TOT with Israel on Israeli domes, and especially the directed energy weapon, the Israeli beam, is extremely important. This is very, very good because, especially on the line of control when we are operating and Pakistan is using artillery and mortar fire, I think the directed energy weapon, which is 100 kV one, the range is 10 kilometers, it is going to be very effective in tackling this menace of artillery shells, mortar shells, all these kind of things. And of course, the UAV, which Pakistan has been launching repeatedly along the entire western border.
All right. Let's also bring in other panelists, please. Jeremy Zakharov, I'd like you to come in on this. How is this entire Hexagon alliance going to work? We've heard about this, but in terms of its actual announcement, as yet we don't know a lot of the countries which are expected to be part of it, from Asia, from Africa, so on and so forth. What are we expecting? What are the specifics of this particular alliance, and how is it really going to function and change how diplomacy really works?
Well, I think it's, first of all of us in Israel remember fondly the visit of Prime Minister Modi in 2017, which in many ways symbolized the beginning of a very strong strategic partnership between India and Israel, which has only developed over these years. But I would like to say, before we get to the issue of the alliance, that the relationship is far broader than just only the strategic and military cooperation, which is primarily defensive in nature and reflects the mutual desire of both countries in the pursuit of stability, security, and also countering terrorism and extremism in a very changing world. And I think that over these last years, we've seen how this relationship has expanded and strengthened. I think that like-minded countries today, as you mentioned in the Hexagon Alliance, need to have that sense of like-mindedness and common purpose. I think this is something that is very crucial to serve both countries' national security interests. I'm sure that the present visit of Prime Minister Modi will expand that relationship, that intimacy even more, but it will focus primarily, I think at this stage, on the strengthening of the bilateral alliance. And as you mentioned, a number of different issues, going from military exchanges to the free trade agreement, which is absolutely incredibly important. Other issues such as agriculture are all major issues in the bilateral relationship.
Right.
So we look forward to seeing a very great consolidation of this relationship in this visit.
Consolidation of the visit during this trip, Sushant Sareen, it is a fact that India and Israel, have a lot in common. It is a fact that the two countries' relationship has been on the up and up for the past several years. But taking it forward and joining this kind of an alliance, what are you looking at in terms of the impact of this? Sushant Sareen.
So look, Madhav, as far as this alliance is concerned, I don't know whether, I think it's still a somewhat inchoate kind of an idea. But I see the principle behind it. Because let's face it, Turkey has been a thorn in the flesh of Israel as well as of India. The amount of terrorism that has come into India from Turkey under that third-rate fellow Erdogan is probably second to only what they've done with Israel or trying to do with Israel. Secondly, Pakistan. So when you look at the kind of countries that are proposed to be part of the Hexagon alliance, we've already been beefing up our relationship with them. With Israel, of course, over the last 10, 15 years, the relationship has gone from strength to strength. I think it's not just about the convergence of interest, but even more importantly, I think there is a lot of empathy in India for Israel, and likewise, I think from Israel with India. I think we understand the kind of challenges both countries face. And then if you look at what is happening with Greece and look at how the relationship between India and Greece has been progressing, or between Cyprus and India, clearly, there is that convergence. Now, when he's talking about some of the Arab countries joining it, I presume one of them will be the UAE, which has become a kind of a bulwark against radicalism. The Emirates is very, very emphatic about not allowing radical philosophies and ideologies to flourish in their part of the world. The outlier in this would be Saudi Arabia. If somehow Saudi Arabia can either stay neutral or be brought in, I think then it's a slam slam dunk. But if Saudi Arabia was to lean in the direction of Turkey, which would be disastrous for the Saudis, or for that matter with the Pakistanis, which would again be disastrous for the Saudis, because the Pakistanis they are competitive only in polio, in AIDS, and in terrorism. There is no third thing that the Pakistanis sell to the rest of the world. Apart from nuclear blackmail. So clearly, I think the Pakistanis are going to be a problem. But if the Saudis can be, won over, MBS probably does offer an opportunity to not lean in favor of the Turks and the Pakistanis. But other than that, I would imagine that this is an alliance, whatever form it takes, whatever structure it has, whatever the commitments of this alliance is, even if it's a quad kind of a grouping of countries.
Right.
I think it's a grouping whose time has come.
Okay, it's a grouping which time has come. But Dr. Kedar, I want you to come in on that point. Of course, Saudi Arabia, perhaps the biggest country there in the Middle East, its participation very significant, as Sushant Sareen is saying. What's the possibility of that happening? Because we've seen how Saudi Arabia has recently announced its own ties as far as Pakistan is concerned. And also, it is a fact that the last, a few months of fighting, that we've seen, when it comes to the Gaza Strip, etc., there has been a lot of concern that has been expressed by different countries. In that situation, how easy will it be to convince countries such as Saudi Arabia in your immediate neighborhood to come along?
Well, until some 3 or 4 months ago, I would say that Saudi Arabia is more or less with the Western alliance with Israel, although not explicitly, but definitely implicitly. However, during the last 3-4 months, Saudi Arabia is shifting, getting much closer to the Muslim Brotherhood, and especially Turkey, which is the herald of the Muslim Brotherhood today. And something happened there in Saudi Arabia, apparently because of difference between Saudi Arabia and the Emirates about Yemen. And because of this, these differences between Saudi Arabia and the UAE about Yemen, the Saudis turned totally against the UAE and UAE's friends like Israel. And this is not natural for the Saudis to side with the Muslim Brotherhood because of differences between the kind of Islam in Saudi Arabia and the Muslim Brotherhood. However, I hope that with the time the Saudis will return to the line which they used to have for many, many years.
Right. You want to comment on this, General Meston, because in terms of India's own alliances and India's own, what it brings to the table in terms of not just trade, not just the defense cooperation that we're looking at, but also, of course, India, a very credible partner of Israel, and coming at a time like this visit certainly being seen as very significant at a time when other countries such as Saudi Arabia, at least the attempt being made to reach out to them.
See, the best part about India is, as on date, we have excellent relations with large number of countries in the West Asia or Middle East. For example, recently, our Prime Minister had visited Jordan, Oman. And of course, we had recently the, I think, 27 Arab countries' foreign ministers were here and the Prime Minister addressed them. What does this reflect? India is very clear with our strategic autonomy. We have got good relations with everyone, but certainly not at the cost of compromising our national interest. If any country, whether it is Turkey or any of these countries which are against Indian national interest, India will not compromise, and I'm quite sure neither Israel will do it, and that is very, very clear, and that is why they are talking about this hexagonal alliance. And I think the IMEC corridor is extremely important because, it, of course, goes through UAE, then Saudi Arabia, then Jordan, and of course, the Haifa port is being developed by India, and thereafter to, the European countries. So I think Saudi Arabia and UAE in this connection, I think they need to be aligned, and India has a major role. We are the only rare country which can talk to, whether it is Saudi Arabia, whether it is to UAE. And I think the kind of bonhomie which the Prime Minister has developed with most of these Arab leaders, I think we can play this Islamic radicalism factor, and we have to draw lessons from UAE, which is one of the best countries in that area where, they are totally against any kind of...
Massive. Okay, let me also bring in Jeremy Zakharov and Sushant the last point, the larger question is this: as all of this is happening, this entire visit is happening in the backdrop of a U.S. build-up when it comes to Iran. Now, we don't know what U.S. will finally do. We've seen President Trump make certain statements in the public domain. We've seen him withdraw from certain positions also in the public domain. In view of that, how important is this visit, Jeremy Zakharov, in terms of the outreach between India and Israel, as well as other countries in the Middle East?
Look, first of all, I think in and of itself, the visit of Prime Minister Modi is a very important landmark in terms of the bilateral relationship. And I think it's an important time, as we've already discussed, there are many issues on the table here, whether it's the Hexagon alliance, the IMEC program, which I think is crucial, and going to our own bilateral relationship. So I think that is important in and of itself without connection to the issue of Iran. Obviously, the talks tomorrow in Geneva between America and Iran will, to a great extent, give an indication of where America is going and if there is a chance for a political agreement. It's difficult to be optimistic at this point how the Iranians are going to handle it, and we can't take off the table for the time being the possibility that there will be a military clash.
Okay, Sushant, very quickly, your words, your views on this.
Look, I'm a little conflicted. If there is a military clash, and that could very well happen, as Jeremy is saying, the point is, will it achieve its objectives? And I think there's a big question mark around that. To my mind, if indeed the regime in Iran is as weak as is being made out, that it can be shaken up by an aerial attack and the regime will fall, then do you actually need to carry out that aerial attack? Or can you try and, destabilize the regime or displace it through some other methods, which does not lead to kinetic action? Because kinetic action, you're not entirely sure how exactly it unfolds. What are the capabilities that Iran still retains? What are the kind of retaliation it is still capable of? Will it
ensure the larger purpose of regime change which is being spoken about? Will that happen on ground or not? Still, of course, remains to be seen, but certainly a very, very important visit. We'll be watching out for Prime Minister's address that's expected from the Knesset at 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Major General Meston, Sushant Sareen, Lieutenant Colonel Kedar, as well as Jeremy Zakharov, thanks so much for joining us this evening.